Welcome back to The Beast Within. I'm your host, Aaron Saltzman, and if you haven't yet, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and never miss another episode of what we can only call overcoming mental obstacles to reach your fullest potential. Today's guest, Michelle Love, a medicine woman yoga guide, sound healer, and psychedelic facilitator who helps people heal on deep energetic and emotional levels. Her work blends ancient practices with modern tools like microdosing and is also rooted to self-awareness. But her journey wasn't always grounded. You see, for years, Michelle struggled with time slipping through her fingers like we always do, caught in distractions, chronic health challenges, and the fear that if she stepped into more, it might not work or she might not succeed. Today, we're naming her beast and unpacking what it really costs when you don't manage your time with intention. Because you see, the time management beast is the boss that you never hired. It fills your schedule with distractions, makes you late to your own life, and keeps you busy with a full schedule on something that actually doesn't pertain or reach your purpose. It only cares that you're in a reaction and not creating something. And if you don't learn to lead with your time, it leads straight into burnout, regret, or someone else's dream, living out somebody else's life. So with that, I want to introduce Michelle, and thank you so much for being on this episode with us. I'm really excited to hear the tools that you have used to become the success that you are. Please introduce yourself if there's anything that I missed or anything that you'd like to add.
Thank you, Aaron. That was a beautiful introduction.
Thank you so much.
And yes, I have not always been the best with time management, and the beasts of within that you talk about, whether it's imposter syndrome or comparison, or I like to call mine Sasha the self-sabotager, because I will get forward momentum going, and then that critic or the boss, as you mentioned, that I never hired gets in the way and starts telling me a bunch of unnecessary stories that aren't true. And then I second guess, or I allow other people's opinions, or all sorts of things that truly don't matter. And at the end of the day, it's really about me. And it took me a long time to get to that place. I definitely am in overcoming or have overcome people pleasing and allowing a lot of that other people's opinions to navigate my life. And that's not always easy.
Yeah, and I love that you brought in the early and often people pleasing and bringing other people, because other people have an effect on our time and our time, right? Our time management. When you give and you give and you give to others, you're almost shutting off the availability to give to yourself. And so with that, we have to learn to protect our time. And so let's back up to before business was thriving, before you were the success that you are today. What were some things that held you back, that preoccupied your time? Was it thinking that you weren't good enough, so you spent time avoiding certain situations? Or was it more so you just didn't know any better on the way to spend your time?
I would say it's probably a little bit of both. I feel like I don't want to speak for anybody else, but that general human condition of we don't know until we know, and we have blind spots. And so what I think I'm doing and what is working for me from where I'm at, living my life in whatever places and spaces, I may not recognize that there are areas or things that are holding me back.
Absolutely.
And so that definitely can have a part to play in it, as well as circling back around to that people pleasing or putting other people's needs as I'm going to say a single mom. My kid's dad is in the picture. He's a great father, and raising kids, not having a partner, doing your own thing, that was definitely and has been a priority. They are now adults. This is a new ball game that I am stepping into with a lot more time to be able to contribute. And so I do think that in itself has helped my business be successful. With that being said, I did many years ago put more energy into myself specifically, which in turn helped my business. And there's that fine line, I feel like, of being selfish versus pouring into yourself and really like loving yourself and taking care of yourself.
Absolutely.
And I definitely got caught up in other people's opinions of me being selfish by pouring into myself and taking care of my needs. And yet at the end of the day, if I don't do it, who's going to do it? When I have kids that are 10 and 12 years old, they can't take care of those needs for me. And so prioritizing some of those things was great. And then it would bring up some of the mom guilt and the other things. So it's that constant juggling of the different critics that kind of shuffle in and out. One comes up and then that one leaves and another one wants to show up and be like, but what about me?
And I think that channels exactly what we're talking here, is those inner voices, right? Those inner voices that tend to pull you in different directions. And so I like where you're headed with that. It's like, so everybody does have the same 24 hours. This is correct. But not everybody has the same things on their plate. And so when it comes to being a mom or a full-time parent who's working a job and has a lot on their plate, it's very easy to convince ourselves that there's just no room for myself, right? There's no room to work on myself. There's no room to work on my purpose or my goals because I have other obligations. And so did this cross your path as you were, how old are your kids, by the way?
Now 22 and 20.
Okay. And so as they were younger, did this cross your path of like, well, there's no time for me. It is all about them.
Absolutely. And I would do my best to schedule as it went from being, say, the stay-at-home mom, still being married, to then getting divorced and having to work part-time and working it around picking them up. And I didn't want to have them in childcare if I didn't have to. And so I did put a lot of my needs on the back burner or scheduled it around when they were busy and doing their things. And like I said, the guilt would come up of going on a girls' weekend or girls' night out if it were a night that was my night with the girls. And I slowly started to overcome that and recognized how important it really was to, honor that the guilt came up, see it for what it is, invite it in for like, hey, I see you, but you're not true. I'm doing a really damn good job of being a mom and juggling a lot of things. And there was a time that there was a husband or a partner in my life and we still went away and did a date night or a vacation or whatever. Why is this any different? I don't need to carry the weight of the world. And it wasn't necessarily until the shoulder froze that I realized how much of that weight of the world I was carrying.
Absolutely.
And owning a selfish versus no, I got to pour into my cup first, and then I can pour into other people's cups.
That's a perfect analogy for time management. So the analogy that I have, which is very similar, is on an airplane, they tell you to put your mask on first before you help somebody else's. Very same type of a figure to say that you have to take care of yourself in order to give yourself and better yourself to give to others in all aspects.
Yeah.
And so it brings me to a quote I want to cover, and it goes back to prioritizing your life. And so the quote goes, if you don't prioritize your life, someone else will. And to you, before we dive deep into this, what does that mean to you, and how has that affected your life in the past?
So that gave me chills.
I love that.
I didn't see myself as a business owner. I am a creative and an artist, if you will, in what I do. I do sound healing and teach yoga and breath work, and I lead people through ceremony using psychedelics and somatic exercises to really get to the root of who they are and what's holding them back, just as much as I'm on that self-discovery path as well. And at the same time, just that imposter syndrome of like, who am I to be doing this? But I didn't necessarily choose to do it. It chose me, and what I've gone through and experienced and navigated in my own health journey, and the amount of gaslighting and misdiagnoses and pharmaceuticals that were thrown in my way that none of which helped. I had to really dig deep and figure out what the fuck worked for me, what didn't work for me. And there were a lot of other people's opinions telling me I had to do something that didn't resonate and it didn't work. And so there has been a long period of time in my life where, excuse the expression, but I've already used that word, I didn't know my ass from a hole in the ground.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't.
Yeah.
So who was I to own a business?
Mm-hmm.
I was playing safe in, well, I'll teach yoga for this place. I will rent out this space to do a sound healing. I will be part of this Reiki share. And yet I kept finding myself in places that didn't align where my values were. And it was like, I cannot share the gifts that I have, but be in a place, in a space where that's not in alignment with who they are. And then I felt inauthentic. And so it kind of went back to that like selfish imposter syndrome kind of thing.
And I absolutely appreciate the realness. I mean, that was very well put on. Exactly what I want to cover with this is that, just like the quote says, if you don't prioritize your life or your needs or your purpose, then somebody else will. And that's almost in the situation of what was happening is you were afraid to dive into what you believed was truly for you.
Yes.
Because of this, so many people fall into the path of, I'm just going to let somebody else dictate my life. I'm going to
settle.
Exactly. Yes. I'm going to let somebody else make my hours for me. I'm going to make somebody else decide how much money I am going to
get
make.
Paid.
Right? And this is all due to the fact of, and there's so many different beasts that this brings up, but this is all due to the fact of lack of prioritizing your life and your time.
Absolutely.
And so what does now, sitting at where you're at now, what does time mean for you in many ways, right? I mean, what does it mean for you? And is it something that you would ever give back?
So I laugh all the time and say time is an illusion and every day ends in Y, and that's all I know. It just blends together. I work, less, as in on a calendar timed out of scheduled than I ever have, but I'm working more on being who I am that just attracts who needs to be in my life, that ultimately we exchange a currency that energizes my bank account in abundance so that I can live my life with, I'm sitting here, the wind chimes are going, I'm looking at the ocean, it's a beautiful day, I went to the beach earlier, don't know, like sometimes at 8 o'clock in the morning what's going to be like at 6 o'clock. I might walk out my door and come back 10 hours later like I was on vacation, and yet I'm working. I'm working at like being me, and people sharing conversation that then lead them to doing work with whatever it is.
Right.
There was a time that I worked my ass off chasing tail. I was teaching up to 15 yoga classes a week and hosting 3 or 4 circles a month and taking classes and doing all sorts of things to prove, I don't know, that I was worth doing whatever I was doing because I didn't think I could. And the less I do that and the more I just am myself and follow what the energy is of the day, I wake up very early, naturally. I was never a morning person, and now by 5 a.m. I'm awake and I do my practices, calling in the directions, meditate.
And excuse the interruption, what I believe is the reason for that is because you have you've turned a, like you said, you were working a lot before. Now you work more, but it's authentic. And so you just have fallen into your true identity.
Absolutely.
And life becomes less stressful. Yes, more things on your plate, but less stressful because you're doing it for you. You're doing what you love and you're doing what feels natural. And so I think that with, like, for instance, waking up at the 5 a.m. all of a sudden is because your body is in this sense of peace.
Yes.
And so I love with what you said that you brought up time being a currency. And to me, it's the ultimate currency because, I mean, an analogy is like if people are so fixated on their bank account, but if you can get your life to where you want it, money will flow naturally to you. And so one thing I want to bring up, it's like if somebody's bank account was leaking and they're just seeing it drip and money just disappearing out of their bank account, they would act quickly and they would
Yes.
solve this problem. But for some reason, when it comes to time doing the same thing, we just think that we have this unlimited abundance of time. And what I love about what you have done is you have transformed your day to day into spending your time doing things that you love. And that might be work, right? Because you absolutely love what you do. And so
Sure.
I love the analogy of time being our main currency. And I want to open that up to all of our listeners that time can be everything. Time can get you to the dreams that you want. And you just have to learn how to spend your time in the right areas and invest in yourself with your time. And so I want to dive into management again. Is what were maybe some issues that you had with management and where do they stand now?
I would say definitely a big one that I still can fall into is the scroll on the mindless shit.
Yes.
That can be just as much as a form of entertainment as like watching a movie on my TV above me. And when I get in the scrolly, but then I start comparing myself to other people's journeys, thinking that I should be doing it differently.
Yes.
That's when I need to shut it down and be like, we're not doing this anymore.
And now, quick question with what you just said, because that is so spot on. How do you bring that awareness to yourself that you're going down that dark hole? Because so many people fight exactly what you just said. I'd say anybody scrolling, all of a sudden that thing becomes a comparison and you are now in a realm of negativity. So how did you create an alarm that says, boom, oh my God, I'm going to that dark place. I need to check myself. I need to check this so-called inner beast and I need to put this phone down?
So I just was in Sedona last week and I noticed that I wasn't on the internet hardly at all. Like I would post a story quick of where I was, but I didn't get into the scrolling thing. And as soon as I started to scroll and I noticed where it wasn't fun, I looked at like, what am I looking at? Who am I looking at? What is the like, is the message being conveyed? And for the first time in a long time, I had a lot less guilt of snoozing people or like saying, see less of that, or unfollowing without feeling guilty that I was hurting anybody's feelings because I wasn't feeling good and I can't manage anybody else's feelings. So that hasn't always been easy because I'm like, what if they know that I did that? And then what if I run into them?
Correct.
And all these little critic things. And I was like, Michelle, it's not about them. None of this is about anybody else but yourself. What you're feeling right now is feeding into something that you have a choice. You can cut this right here and let go of it. And holy crap, just alone in this last week of how much I had the sense of that peace and freedom when I barely even got on my phone for social media because it was funsy versus now I'm home. Home means we've got chores, we've got real life, we've got things that isn't vacation time.
Yeah.
And how quickly I want to start scrolling, which is fine. Check in with life. There's so much fun stuff. And what is feeling that's within me that starts to change? And who is it that I'm looking at? And that goes for me hand in hand with not always paying attention, which I do much better now, but at a time, my intuition. And I'd be like, oh shit, that happened. And it's like, well, yeah, it was trying to get your attention, but you weren't necessarily paying attention to it.
Exactly.
You were mindlessly going through life.
Your intuition tells you the road that you're headed down. And so I love it. I think truly the takeaway from everything you just said is if you're going to spend your time doing these things, do so in a positive manner. And what ends up happening, I feel, is like, let's say we're scrolling and we're going down this negative self path. It's like you're not just spending your time on that phone. All of a sudden that phone goes down and now you're feeling sorry about yourself. You're feeling bad about yourself. You don't want to do the next thing on the list that you're supposed to do. You don't want to get up and write your podcast. You don't want to get up and help somebody else heal because you're hurting, right?
Yeah.
And so for time management purpose, by scrolling on Instagram, you just have to be very careful with your filter on Instagram. And you have to be careful with your filter of, are you bringing in that positive energy that's going to motivate you? Because you're right. There's some things on Instagram where I see where like, oh my God, like I'm stoked about this. I want to go do this and become this. And now there's action behind the scrolling. So
Yeah.
this technically helps. But yeah, when you start to see somebody who makes you feel poorly about yourself, well, now all of a sudden your time management is going to shift the other way. And
Totally.
so when it comes to shifting, what was, if you can recall back, let's say before business, before success, and before you kind of got yourself aligned, is what was maybe a turning point in your life when you said, I need to make a change. I need to get some things together. I feel that my purpose is slipping away from me, and that if I don't get my time in a row and take control of it, I'm going to live a life that I never qualified or that I never said I wanted.
It was definitely right when I had gotten divorced about 13 years ago. I was transitioning from stay-at-home mom to going back and doing some part-time, and I had always been a teacher. I've always been a teacher, and I have a teaching credential, and I'd been in the classrooms, and I'd done some part-time with my kids being younger. And I really had decided while they were young that I wasn't going to teach in the classrooms anymore, that I was going to go more in the spiritual teaching side of life. And I, in my first year of getting divorced, became a yoga teacher trainer officially, yoga teacher training, although I'd already taught yoga in many ways. And then I got offered my dream job of teaching in the classroom, middle school, and I got to teach them yoga, and it's a charter school, so it'll be, and it was such a shit show that I was like, I said I wasn't going to go back in the classroom, but I got dangled that this is going to be great, and it's guaranteed money, and I can drop off my kids in the morning, and then I can still have some time to go back. And it was like, who the hell am I giving this time to, and what am I doing right now? And at the end of the school year, that year, I was not really putting it together. Still didn't see the misalignment. And then summer was happening, and I felt so much better and just like so much more alive again. And I was like, wow, like, I think it's like going back to the school thing. And why am I not nurturing the yoga? And you don't make a whole lot of money as a yoga teacher, teaching for places and spaces. And I got called back to be able to do that school year again. And it was PE, and I'm outside, and I love being outside. So again, there were so many positives. And my dad died, and I took time off to go back to Wisconsin. And while I was there, I noticed how just going back for that first week in the school district teaching, and then he died over Labor Day weekend. And I was like, wow, this is so in alignment. But it took something like that to kind of pull me out of it and be like, I said I wasn't going to do this, but I'm doing it. But for some reason, I still had that thought that I was in control and I was the one who knew how to do it, and I can handle all of this. And that was a really big piece of humble pie.
And I love what you said, because I think so many people live their lives like, so when you were being at that school teacher, you were saying it didn't feel at home. It didn't feel like you were directed in the right purpose. When summer came, you finally felt this relief of like, oh my God. And so I think so many people live their lives this way, of doing something that we could only refer to as a cage, like as a prison of our time, right? It's like we're our time is being held captive. And once we're finally free from it, it's like, like people look so deeply up for the weekends because they get their time back. And so many people stay trapped in that. And I know for you, it took a big life situation to occur for you to finally say, enough's enough, this is not what I want. But how can our day-to-day people start to push more towards their purpose and spending their time directed towards that, instead of this imprisonment of their time and only getting back so little of it on a day-to-day basis?
I would say that the number one thing that really I teach now in my clients and classes and workshops and stuff, and do myself, which mine may be more involved, and that's not how you need to do it, is like, I love getting up as early as I do, but that doesn't mean that people are going to have the time in the morning right now. However, when you are laying in bed before you go to sleep is a really great time where you start to go in the in-between. You're starting to go in that theta state where you're very open to suggestion. You're open to connecting to your ancestors, your angels, your guides, whoever and whatever you believe is
Higher
perfect.
power.
Yes. And so being able to ask for what you want, being able to ask for support, to have the courage to let go of what you don't want, to have the courage to take the next step, to take the class, or to follow that passion, or to envision what it looks like. And some of us don't even know what the hell it looks like, what we want. We're just so caught up in what everybody else wants of us that we've never even taken the time to dream
Yes.
about what we want. So before you go to bed, easiest time is you're laying there at night and you're starting to drift off. What is it that you want? Start to curiously explore that.
Yeah, I like it. So putting it out there to be received is big. And so what I truly believe deeply, just because I've seen it unfold in my life, is using your time to manifest and understanding that when you put it out there and whenever you speak it into the world, now all of a sudden your time starts to follow that path. So by speaking it into the world, you have now created a pathway to it. And now subconsciously, most likely, you start to follow that path. You start to use your time to follow that, that yellow brick road, if you will, to Oz, And so I love that what you're saying is putting it out in the universe. And it's a real thing. Manifestation
It
is.
is.
Yeah, it's, living proof that it can be done. And you just have to truly believe it and actually want it for yourself. And so I think everything you do with your business and your purpose and everything like that is an answer to fighting off this inner beast. And I think that you do what you do because it is your purpose in life. And I think once you're living for your purpose, inner beasts can't speak louder than that. And so I believe that this inner beast of time management, if people focus on what they want and what they want to become, then they will put that voice inside of their head telling them to spend 6 hours a day playing video games or telling them that, oh, life sucks. I just want to watch Netflix all day long because I don't want to deal with my current life. And so falling into purpose is a great tool that you have done in your life to force yourself to manage your time correctly.
I agree. It was said to me at one time, you have a choice with that energy, we'll say. Do you want it to be constructive or destructive? And you get to choose. And the destructive can be falling into those, I'll call them old patterns, those ways of being in survival where our nervous system is out of whack. Or I can choose it in the constructive, the creative, the movement type. And again, there was a time I didn't really necessarily know exactly what that was. I didn't even know my head from where all of it. And there are still, I'm human, I'm going through life. There are times still where I can get pulled back in it because something triggers me and I don't live there anymore. I can see it for what it's worth, remind myself, hey, this isn't true. And then use the constructive energy to find a way to move through it. Sometimes it's dancing. Sometimes it's throwing axes at my ex's face.
Yeah.
I did that the other night. It was amazing therapy and I loved it.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. And so
Pick and choose.
So when it comes to, because both of us, very purpose related people, we both are chasing what we think and believe that we're truly here for. So when it comes to somebody that maybe doesn't follow purpose or just doesn't know their purpose, what is something that they can put on the horizon to allow them to realize that they need to spend their time correctly? Is it just goal setting? What is it that they can chase or push towards that can allow them to realize, I need to put my time first?
What are the things that lit you up as a kid? What did you like to do that you don't do anymore? Was it playing baseball, running in the park, drawing pictures, going roller skating. It doesn't mean that's exactly what you do now, but find that feeling in something you experience now as an adult. So maybe baseball playing was, but now going to a game, and suddenly you're going to check out all the games in the stadiums in California in the next year as something to look forward to in the next 12 months. You don't have to necessarily be playing it, but you are experiencing something that brings you joy, which then fills you up, and then you give more to the things that we have to do.
That's it. It's filling yourself up, like you said in the very beginning of this podcast, filling your cup, and filling your cup first, right?
Right.
We have to pour into ourselves, and when your cup becomes more and more full, you start to feel fulfilled, and there's something about that fulfillment that allows us to spend more productivity on ourselves.
Yeah.
And so what is we're going to dive into some tools now. I want to give some tangible tools to our listeners on somebody that's struggling with time management, somebody that's spending a lot of wasted time when their goals are just sitting there and they're not achieving them. What is some things that people can do today, a tangible goal or a tangible tool that they can use today to start putting into plan on becoming better with their time?
A lot of people like music, so I often suggest start with one song. What's your favorite song? Put that song on and do something that you've been avoiding to do.
Ooh, I really like that one. It's kind of an act now kind of situation. I've never heard that before. I've heard the count to 3 and, you just go. But I really like that because it also doesn't force you to spend so much time. Like if you just said, I'm going to work on something for 3.5 minutes.
3.5 minutes, exactly.
That's it. And as soon as you start something, well, inertia now happens, right? And now now it's like, okay, well, I already have some energy in this. Let me just keep this going. And so I really like that because, the one that I had was the one of count to 3 and then you just act. But I really like that one a lot better. Or very similar, they say, work for 25 minutes at a time, take 5 to 10 minutes rest, and then get back to it. And so it's a very, very good tool to create productivity, but also to take action. I really like that one.
And things can be really overwhelming, just as like a big chunk of time can seem so much, whereas like you said, 3 to 4 minutes, and now all of a sudden your mood is shifted, and oftentimes you're like, oh, I got started on this. Instead, maybe you repeat the song, maybe you go to that and play more of that, whatever, and
Absolutely.
Suddenly you're an hour into something and you're like, well, that wasn't so bad.
That's beautiful. And, I do something similar with myself for cardio, right? So it's like, the hardest part about doing cardio is just getting started, right? We talk ourselves out of it. I'm tired. I don't want to do this. I don't want to have to go all the way to the gym. And so I like what you just said because, yes, it's just about getting started. We know that. Like once you start something, it's never as bad as it seemed like it was going to be in the first place. That's just our anxiety overrolling and taking over. And so what you just said gets you to that level of putting the anxious down and just starting. And so
Just start.
That's a beautiful one. And what's so when it comes to time, right? What is your way of managing your time? Do you stick directly to a calendar or schedule? Are you a checklist person where you check off boom 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 everything that's supposed to be done in your day? How do you run your time management?
I probably isn't necessarily the way that will work for a lot of people, and
That's beautiful. That's unique.
Yeah, I have a planner.
Mm-hmm.
It's 2-page for the whole month, and I write in appointments that I have. I allow myself a lot of flexibility. A full day for me is seeing a client, maybe piggybacking another one depending on what the client is doing in the second one, if they're complementary. I usually don't schedule, say, group thing with another group thing in the same day, but I do cluster schedule things so that I will have maybe a Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, or a Friday, Sunday, Monday, or something, so that I have 4 large gongs, singing bowls, medicine bowls, etc. as part of what I do, and that's a lot of like work pack carrying and stuff. So I like to have it in my car and keep it in there and do the things I need to do around, and then fell swoop and bring it up.
Mm-hmm.
But that looks differently week by week, month by month.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's a lot of moving parts. I surrendered a couple years ago and trusting that it'll just work out. I'll say there's a lot of moving parts. When I do the microdosing ceremonies with people, I up until probably a couple hours before the ceremony, there are moving people coming in, leaving. I don't necessarily make people pay in advance and reserve their spot,
Mm-hmm.
although I only have a limited because life is lifing and stuff is happening.
Mm-hmm.
So a surrender of trusting that I'm always where I need to be. A typical day for me that ends in Y.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, if it's not a day that has a client or an event scheduled, when I get up, call in the directions, I give a blessing for the day, I ask for guidance and who needs to have help, and just kind of let it roll.
I like so what you said in the beginning was something that was unique. You said this might not be for everybody, or this might not, but I think that's exactly it. Is our schedules, people are night and day when it comes to this, and so you can lean each way. Do you need a little bit more peace and leeway with your schedule to feel good about what you're achieving, and is that the best way so there's not a ton of pressure? Or are we the kind of people that need non-negotiables? Are we the kind of people that it's like, pack my calendar to the brim, so that way there is a non-negotiable for every single hour and I'm sticking to that, right? So it really depends on the type of person that we are, right? And discipline can work two ways. And so I like that you use that model as your unique style. While I know somebody like myself, my unique style is a non-negotiable in a sense of I know that if I give myself a little bit of leeway, I might take too much. And so I make sure that there's not any leeway within my schedule. And I stick to it knowing that if I don't follow this format, then I'm going to be in trouble.
I get that.
So yeah, I love the fact that it can go in different avenues. And so another tool that I have is that when it comes to your time and when it comes to your schedule, or there's certain things that are, again, non-negotiables, and I'm going to call that your 20%. And the rest of the 80% is things that is fluff, right? Like, for instance, I don't know, going to the pharmacy, going to, washing your car. These are all extras. And so for somebody that's just starting, I always start with the 20% and just focus on the 20%. And like you said, let the guidance of the day take on the other 80%.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
I agree. And even within that 20%, like my non-negotiable is sitting in a practice, and whether it's a movement on my yoga mat, a sitting in meditation, a listening to mantra, a reading, but it's a dedication to my highest self, my practices, my beliefs, my connection to all, clearing my mind, whatever that looks like, but it's not exactly the same every day. And I think even that, for me in the beginning, when I had practiced yoga at 19 in college because it was an easy A, I heard, and I loved it, but I didn't really practice yoga until like my 30s, and like, oh, I get this. Up until then, it was like, oh, I go to yoga and I go to the exact same spot in the room, and I like the exact same teacher, and I like the exact same sequence because it's very predictable. And then I started noticing how I was thinking about what I needed to do when I got home, and the laundry list of bullshit. And I was like, I'm not even practicing yoga.
Yeah, the 80%, right? The extra 80. Your mind started to clutter itself with that extra 80. And so, yes, I think that when it comes to the 20%, you hit it right on the head. There should be 3 non-negotiables in your 20%. There should be 1 for your mind, 1 for your body, and 1 for your spiritual. And with those 3, there should be 1 in each category, whether it be reading a book, whether it be journaling, whether it be whatever it is that you want to do for your mindset. Then there's the body. What movement are you doing? Are you going to the gym? Are you doing yoga? Are you walking 10,000 steps? Whatever it is that's on your radar, what your capabilities are. And then there's the spiritual. And this goes, I mean, so far, right? There's so many different avenues because so many people have different things. Is it reading the Bible? Is it praying? Is it meditation? Is it going, right? I mean, that one can be thrown all over the place, but those are three things that should be within that 20% of your time management, because those 20%, those three things now make you so much more capable of doing the 80%,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
you feel better about yourself. You feel accomplished, and you're ready to take on the world once those three things are complete. So yeah, I absolutely love that. I think that what you mentioned was perfect. Is like in your 20%, you make sure that you wake up, and the first thing you do is what did you mention? What do you like to do whenever you wake up?
It's called a king too, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a blessing that I give for right relation with earth and with my life. And
Perfect.
it's three leaves that you put together and blow your prayers in, and then
It's beautiful.
bury in the earth.
And so spiritual checked off the list, right?
Right away.
Yes.
And I do want to say that, like, some people waking up first thing, that might be the not the time.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get caught up in the day, meaning
Mm,
morning. Again, maybe at night is when you do it, and make that your daily practice. As in, for example, I do a vision board every year, but I do it at my birthday. My birthday was Tuesday of this week.
mm-hmm.
That's my new year.
Mm-hmm.
That's my vision board for the year, not at the beginning of January.
That's it.
I'm not wronging anyone. It's just my birthday starts a new year for me. So that's when I pour my visions, my dreams, and everything into it.
That's
So it's really funny at January to April, people are starting, and I'm like, wait, I still got a couple months left. What's going on my vision board?
Yeah, no,
So
that's it
do
right
what works for
there.
you.
When it's,
Yeah.
yes, when it comes to time management and to create the best opportunity for you to succeed, it has to be, I tell my clients this all the time because they ask, is it better to work out in the morning? Is it better to work out at night? Is it better to eat breakfast? Is it better to skip, right?
Right.
And so this is my answer is when it comes to time management, it is doing what comes most natural and
Yes.
flowing for you. Because if
Yes.
you don't, if it's forced, we will eventually give into that force, right?
Totally.
Yeah,
You'll abandon ship.
exactly. Because
Yeah.
motivation's only going to take you so far. And so I give to that, yes, the same thing you just said. What people ask me all the time, should I work out in the morning? Should I work out at night?
Work out.
It
I don't
depends.
care
Yeah,
when. Just work out.
exactly. When does it fit best in your schedule, and when can you make it the most consistent,
Yeah.
right? Because if you say, I'm going to work out every day at 5 a.m., and you're not a morning person, chances are you're going to slip. Right. And
Yeah.
so I think that is a great tool to utilize when it comes to this time management beast is do what works for you and make sure that it fits within your schedule in order to manage it with your time. And so with that, when you don't manage your time correctly, or when you give into this so-called time management beast, you lose a sense of freedom and you start working for a goal that you didn't put in place. And you're constantly, I mentioned earlier, you're constantly reacting and
Yeah.
you're not actually choosing the life you want. You begin living in, like we said before, a prison dictated by distractions, fear, lack of inability, lack of desire, and lack of purpose. And so I think that's why time management is so important. It's so much more than just getting things checked off of your list. It's putting yourself on the right path that you ultimately want to, the person that you ultimately want to become. And so with that, I want to, leave it with you if there's anything else on this time management beast that you want to cover or anything that you just want to let our guests know about managing your time and keeping track on it.
There's a lot every day that we're being inundated with distractions, as far as what we get in one day thrown at us, what used to be what people had in their lifetime.
Yeah.
And so it's really easy to get overstimulated really quickly and just get thrown off of our game. And if and when at any time we are off our game because we're human, not beating ourselves up and getting so hard on like, oh, now I'm off and just throw the whole thing, whatever it is. Like, unfortunately, moving through this world, there's a lot of odds stacked against us. It just is. And so, just as you and I are talking about, being able to give yourself the gift, if it's 1 freaking minute a day, celebrate that for 1 minute a day, you were aware of wanting to give yourself some time. What a beautiful starting point. And go from there. Habits take a little bit, and it's really easy to fall back into old habits because energy doesn't die. It changes form. The echo will always be there. And it's uncomfortable to move into new frequencies, new ways of being, new routines, etc. And we're all doing our best out here. And I had mentioned earlier about music being such a motivator. Music really is something that can change our mood very quickly. And there's a lot of music that is not necessarily favorable for us to be listening to. And we can be, again, unconscious of what we are consuming.
Absolutely.
And a lot of times people look at what are we consuming as in just the food, but it's who are we around? What are we listening to? What unnecessarily are we adding as stress to our lives in literally just hearing ourselves with the I can'ts and the being so hard on ourselves? And it can seem really overwhelming. And so being able to gift ourselves the present moment, which sounds so cliche, but of that, like, okay, can I carve out 5 minutes? Can I carve out 1 minute? Can I, whatever it is, and just celebrate us for freaking getting through the day sometimes?
Yeah.
That's a huge freaking accomplishment right there.
Yeah, I agree. There's so much stimulation in the world right now and so many things, distractions that we unfortunately take on the daily, and it's very easy to get lost in that. And so with that being said, when it comes to this time management beast, everybody, you have a decision every single day on how you want to spend your time, how you want to spend your energy, honestly, throughout your day, and what kind of things you want to bring in and listen. And look, time management can be an escape from reality, or it can bring you to your greatest reality. And if it's used correctly, and again, not perfect, but just used on a daily basis, taking you in the right direction, then ultimately you will come out to leading that full potential that we're on the route of chasing right now as people in the first place. And so with that being said, I want to close us out here, and I want to thank Michelle so much for coming on and speaking her wisdom and her knowledge. And she's just created, and you can feel it through, I've only spoken with her a few times, but you can just feel it through her energy. And she truly believes in what she has created and the person that she is. And so that is very, I have a lot of respect for that. And so for many of you, it is very, very important, again, to manage your time correctly and just to find these little hidden nuggets, what it's going to do for you in order for you to escapism, right? I mean, so again, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you, Aaron.
My name is Aaron Saltzman. This is The Beast Within, overcoming mental obstacles and coming out the better side at your fullest potential. We hope to see you guys on the next episode, and thank you again. We'll see you soon.
Be well.